Welcome to today's Industry Week webinar. This webinar is titled Going Global, Start Expanding Your Business Now, and is sponsored by EXIM, the Export-Import Bank of the United States. I'm Steve Minner, Industry Week's Executive Editor. Now let me introduce today's speakers. Kelly Kemp is a Business Development Officer with the Southwest Regional Office of EXIM. Based in McKinney, Texas, his territorial responsibilities include Louisiana, Mississippi, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and Northeast Texas. Prior to joining EXIM, Kelly served Halliburton Company for nearly 20 years. Beginning his career in field operations, he went on to serve in a variety of domestic and international credit management, treasury, and finance roles. Kelly also spent 10 years as Senior Trade Finance Specialist, marketing and implementing financing solutions that enabled Halliburton and its vendor community to benefit from incremental export sales of goods and services to emerging markets such as Algeria, Angola, Brazil, Russia, and Venezuela. Joining him is Gabriel Ojeda. Gabriel is President and CEO of Fritz Pack Corporation, which manufactures concrete admixtures in powdered form. Fritz Pack Corporation, established in 1998, is a small, privately owned family business. Educated as a biomechanical engineer, Gabriel began his career as an academic in Mexico and then moved to the Dallas area in 1984, working for Fritz Industries until 1998. In that year, he purchased the concrete admixtures division of Fritz to form Fritz Pack Corporation. Gabriel is a member of the advisory committee of the Export-Import Bank of the United States. He's also a board member of the American Concrete Pumping Association and a regular member of the National Ready Mix Concrete Association, the American Concrete Institute, the International Packaged Concrete Manufacturers Association, and the American Society of Concrete Contractors. He's also a member of the National Federation of Independent Businesses and the National Association of Manufacturers. Now, let me turn things over to our presenters. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. This is Gabriel Ojeda. I am the president and one of the owners of Fritz Pack Corporation. As it was mentioned already, we're a small manufacturing business located in Mesquite, Texas. That is just outside of the city of Dallas. Approximately 35% of our business is in exports. We export regularly to about 10 countries, such as Mexico, Canada, Italy, Spain, Germany, Russia, Brazil, and then we have countries that we may not do it very often, like South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, Bahamas, Bermuda, the Virgin Islands, and many other ones. We are primarily in the construction business, and I got my slides out of order. Apologize. We're primarily in the construction business. This is our plant in Mesquite, Texas, and on the right you can see one of our products and one of our boxes. You will notice that we have an American flag on one of our boxes, and something we started doing about 10 years ago. Something interesting about the American flag is we had our distributor from Russia visit us a couple of years back, and we asked him if he wanted us to change all of the packaging to Russian and put their name, and their answer was no. One of the reasons that we sell your product is because it's made in the U.S. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're doing your packaging. How we got into the export business, we have to go back and look at the construction industry. This slide shows the effect of the Great Recession or the real estate bubble. 2005 construction was at this highest point in the United States, and by 2009, construction had dropped approximately 46%. So right there at the bottom, that's when we decided, hey, we need to look outside of the United States to recover the 46% sales that we have lost. In those years, we did like a lot of companies. We reduced staff, we had layoffs, we cut down on benefits, and we cut down on salaries. And it was a situation that, you know, as an owner, I didn't like. Okay, let's look at the top 3 results. Number 1 is don't understand regulations, 27.5%. Number 2 is, well, we have 2 tied. It's confusing and worrying about getting paid. Okay, now Industry Week and Exim Bank have been doing surveys, and let's see what their survey shows. So 44% of the people in the overall survey showed that the main worry is about getting paid. In our survey that we did right now, it came as one of the top 3. It's confusing. What's the other one that we had? It's 16%, so it's one, you know, like the top 4. And what was number? The other one was, worry about getting paid. Our case, when we started looking at exports, our main concern was being worried about getting paid. We're fortunate that we have a good relationship with our bank. We had a good line of credit that we can finance those exports, but the problem was collecting. I can draw on my line of credit, but at the end of the year, I have to pay back the bank, or I have to be able to retrieve that debt. So when we were talking with our bank, they talked to us about the export credit insurance that is available through the Exim Bank. So I'm going to explain to you what is the export credit insurance from the view of a user. This is a service that we use. And insurance is just like your car. You pay a certain amount, you have an accident, you call the bank, the insurance company, and they take care of it. In the case of the credit insurance, you pay your policy, you call the Exim Bank if you have a problem or a crash or an accident, and they take care of it. It is important to know that it's primarily for U.S. manufactured goods. If your business is to buy materials in China to sell in South America, you are not eligible for this type of insurance. You need to have at least, I believe, 90% U.S. content. And as part of the U.S. content, it includes manufacturing costs, labor, marketing, and things like that. So if you're buying, let's say, motors overseas, you're bringing them here, and the majority of the work is done here in the U.S., you may qualify because of the domestic work. So if there's an issue with you, just check with Exim Bank about how to determine the U.S. content. Second, you need to have a business history. It is not for startups. You want to start a company, I want to start exporting, and I want to start getting insurance. It's not going to work. The bank wants you to have a history of business, that you know what you're doing, that you have manufacturing practices in place. There are country limitations. The insurance is available for 155 countries around the world, and there's some that there is no insurance. Some are because they don't have the legal establishment. If there is a claim, nobody recognizes foreign receivables. Maybe their banking system is not capable of handling foreign currency. And third one, maybe Congress decided that we don't want to be doing business with a certain country. Syria is an example. Cuba is another one. Libya, I believe, is another one. The Exim Bank has a list of countries, and it's not secret, so you can just check with them. One of the things that was very useful for us had to do with our current customers. When we got our policy, the bank told us, if you had already enough confidence to issue credit to your customers, the Exim Bank will also have that confidence to give credit or insurance to your customers. The other good thing is that when we got our policy, we did not have to notify our customers, nor did we have to ask them to sign any papers or submit financials or anything like that. So the customer has no idea that you are insuring the products that you're selling them. And that's very important because when you're dealing with international companies, you don't want them to be sending you financial statements. We have problems here domestically about privacy. We don't want to release ours. People from overseas are going to be less likely to do it. If you are in a situation where you have a large customer that takes the majority of your business, you may be required to get what they call a special buyer credit limit. I believe it's about $100,000 per invoice, not total per year. So if you have a large customer that is taking the majority of your exports or that is going to be taking it, you talk with Exim Bank, you tell them about it, and if necessary, you get a special buyer credit. We did it for one of our customers that is our number one export customer, and we gave them the name. Luckily for us, this customer was in the international credit reporting agencies, so within a week, we were told it's okay to sell to this customer, and they never knew that we were doing a credit check on them. How does it work? The way it works, you sign for a yearly policy with Exim Bank, and you present your exports, and based on your exports, they will determine the fee that you have to pay. And then at the end of the month, you total your sales overseas, you multiply by your rate, and you send them a check. In our case, we pay it with a credit card. The cost is right below 0.5%. That means that if you send an invoice for $100,000, it's going to cost you $50 in insurance. So it is not expensive. It's very affordable. And you do it per invoice. It's not a repeating thing. So it's not like I sold last month, got to pay it again. No, it's only as you sell it. And the other good thing is it is pay as you go. The more you export, the more you pay. If the market softens, if you're seasonal and you don't sell much during Christmas or in the winter or in the summer, but you don't have to pay it then. So it's pay as you go. Now, I'm going to talk to you about a story, something that happened to us so you understand better how it works. And I call it bankruptcy Italian style. Now, you have to remember when the customer doesn't want to pay you is one thing. And sometimes the customers cannot pay you. And by cannot pay you, it could be a government takeover and foreign currency is no longer available. We have the case of Venezuela right now where the currency is controlled by the central government, and they may not allow you to buy U.S. dollars. You have the case, I think I mentioned Libya and Egypt a couple of years ago. There was a takeover of the government. And how do you get paid when the government it's changed all the rules? And you have also rare occasions when the container gets lost or the merchandise gets damaged. I mean, how do you get paid? In our case, we had a customer of 10 years. We have sent them some product, and we're expecting to be paid in 60 days. 60 days, payment did not come. We started sending emails and phone calls, no returns. And finally, the customer told us we're in bankruptcy. And we received a notification from the Italian court that they were in bankruptcy. So if you think of bankruptcy in the U.S., think about it in Italian. So we gather all our papers. We call Exim Bank, say, hey, we have this customer is not paying us. They ask us for invoices, bills of ladings, proof of deliveries, purchase orders. We send everything to Exim Bank, and within 2 weeks, we were paid all of the funds minus our deductible. So for us, as a business, it's very good to be able to sell, to offer credit to our customers, and have the certainty that we're going to get paid. I'm going to go back one slide here. This is how the construction industry works. Thanks to this service of the Exim Bank, we're exporting to 35 countries. Our sales right now are better than what we had in 2005 and 2006. So even though the construction industry has not recovered, we are better than recover compared to other industries, thanks to these types of services that we use. We call it the insurance. I have a different name for these type of products. I call it that we have a successful international lawyer on retainer. We know that if we have a problem with collection, Exim Bank is going to be there for us. We have the insurance, and we're confident of going forward and bringing more business. With that, I'm going to pass the microphone to Kelly with the Exim Bank.
Well, good afternoon. It's nice to be here with everyone. Back in my private sector days, as was mentioned in my bio, I was with Halliburton, which is a multinational oil field service company. I started out as an equipment operator in Pauls Valley, Oklahoma, and then went on to serve in the credit department in Duncan, Oklahoma, and then broke out as a domestic credit manager in Shreveport, Louisiana, back in 1984. If you remember what the oil field was like in 84, well, it was pretty tough, and credit management was a very busy role. And the point I want to make is what Gabriel made, is that, you know, getting paid in the U.S. sometimes is very difficult, and getting paid internationally, if you run into an issue like you did with the Italian bankruptcy, is even more so. And so eventually I morphed into an international credit role with Halliburton, and was quickly introduced to Export-Import Bank of the United States, primarily from the buyer finance side of the transactions, but nonetheless was introduced to Exim Bank and the power of using its tools that was available to us for creating incremental sales. And I think Gabriel's point that where he has recovered beyond the boom in his business is just, you know, evidence of the fact that, you know, using credit insurance where it makes sense and where it's necessary can help you grow your market exponentially in some cases. But if you think about it, if you look at the global marketplace, fully 95% of sales opportunities are outside of the U.S. And so in my background, I began in domestic credit. All I saw was the U.S. But when I got into an international role, I began to see, wow, there's a huge market out there. I think even back at that time in the 90s, early 90s for Halliburton, we were like 60 or 70% international. So it became readily apparent to me as a young man that the overseas markets were paramount to growth. And so using Ex-Im Bank is a great way to grow those markets. Ex-Im Bank is a small organization. We're not here to compete with the private sector. You see on this map here, we have a number of offices around the United States. It looks like a big spread there, but really it's a bit deceptive. There's only about 17, well certainly less than 20 people that do what I do at the local level. You can see we have offices in Houston and Dallas and Miami, Atlanta, New York City, Detroit, Chicago, Minneapolis, and along the West Coast. But those are 1-, 2-man offices at most in most instances. So we have a very small marketing staff. Most of our 400 or so employees are at the headquarters in Washington, D.C. with some legal and underwriting and that type of thing. But we're a very small agency, and I just want to stress the fact that we're not here to compete with the private sector. We're simply here to keep the playing field level for our U.S. exporters. There are many export credit agencies around the world trying to do exactly what we're trying to do. There's Hermes in Germany, Coface in France, and on the list goes. And so we're here to help the U.S. companies compete abroad, which is exactly what we're doing with FritzPac, and Mr. Ojeda is helping him explore new markets, diversify his market, and grow his company. We can work with a number of different industries. Obviously, Mr. Ojeda is a manufacturer. That's sort of our bread and butter. If you manufacture products here in the U.S. and are selling internationally, we're thrilled to work with you and support you in those efforts. But we can also do services, and that's a bit of a underserved market, if you will. We've helped some engineering companies grow exponentially. If you look at if you look at a service company's balance sheet, you won't see much in the way of assets. You'll see maybe a building and some office furniture and accounts receivable. We can help service companies grow by leveraging things such as cost and excess of billings and their foreign receivables, that type of thing. We can also work with wholesalers and distributors and trading companies as well. Ex-Im Bank does a lot of things. You might perceive us as doing a lot of things. But if you boil this down to our bare bones, we really only do 3 major things. We provide insurance, we provide loan guarantees, and in rare instances, we provide direct loans. So if you'll just remember that, we don't do a whole lot of different things when it boils down to our basics. One of our first things we do is, what if I need capital to operate my business while waiting for payments on overseas sales to come in? Well, the working capital program is it's a delegated authority program. What that means is there are many commercial lenders in the good old U.S. of A. that have delegated authority from us to process you as a U.S. company selling abroad for working capital loans. These working capital loans are based on assets that are destined for overseas. So if you have an ongoing relationship with a bank and they're lending on your raw materials, your work in process, your inventory, your foreign receivables, your domestic receivables, but all of a sudden along comes this international deal, and they're hesitant to entertain those transactions. Well, that's where we can step in and support you as the U.S. exporter. Now, I want to stress the fact that we can do direct exports. Obviously, if you're a U.S. manufacturing selling directly to end users or foreign distributors, obviously we can do that. But in my experience with an oil field background, kind of conscious of this, but a lot of U.S. companies work for multinational companies which are exporting the products that they're manufacturing for them. Case in point, had a company in South Louisiana that manufactured products for GE. The man's purchase orders came from GE, Hartford, Connecticut. But what he was building for them was going to be installed in China. And this company needed working capital to purchase raw materials for export, after manufacturing, of course, for export to China, and his purchase order from GE. We were able to come in through his delegated authority lender. His bank underwrote the deal. We actually issued a what's called a waiver to allow them to advance 90 to 100% on the raw materials he needed to manufacture this product for export to China under a GE purchase order. And this man set record sales for his company that year because of that very fact. Had a company here in North Texas recently selling, again, indirectly. They were manufacturing capital equipment for Bechtel. The Bechtel purchase order was a U.S. purchase order, but what they were building for Bechtel was headed for overseas. Bechtel was requiring a large performance bond in that situation, and this company's ability to issue a standby letter of credit to serve as a performance bond was there, but it would have depleted their working capital position completely. So they came in with their lender, which was not a delegated authority lender, but with which they had a historical credit history, and we were able to approve a line for them on this transaction-specific opportunity through which they issued these standby letters of credit to Bechtel with between 10 to 25% collateral as opposed to 100% cash collateral, which is the norm. So if you look at this slide here, it kind of emphasizes the impact of what we can do. If you look at the column right here, I hope my arrow is showing that, but the appetite of a lender, an asset-based lender, to advance on raw materials and work in process and finished goods destined for overseas is very small. Certainly work in process, a product that's not ready for market, it's a work in process. Banks typically won't lend on work in process. If you look over to the next column over here, with an Ex-Im Bank guarantee, the advance rates ramp up rapidly. They go up to 75% on raw materials, work in process, finished goods, 90% on the foreign receivables being generated out of that transaction. So you can see the delta between these two credit lines, using Ex-Im Bank or not, is pretty impressive. So back to Mr. Ojeda's product. What if my buyer can't pay me? What if my buyer fails commercially? What if my buyer's country fails or causes me not to get paid? Well, political and commercial risk are the risks that we underwrite at Ex-Im Bank on behalf of the U.S. export community. Commercial risk, obviously, Mr. Ojeda suffered a commercial default linked to a bankruptcy. So what's political risk? Well, you may remember a few years ago, the mad cow disease broke out, and we insure the export of a lot of beef products. So 3 different countries at the time, Mexico, Japan, I believe South Korea, all said, nope, no more U.S. beef. We'd insured a lot of shipments of beef that were already on the water, on the rail, being delivered to the customers overseas. And all of a sudden, guess what? For political reasons, they could not get paid. So we ended up paying out a lot of political risk insurance claims on that product. So both politically and commercially, the export credit insurance can provide U.S. companies with, a sleep-at-night solution. In a global marketplace, companies need to be able to compete, particularly where they have repeat buyers and they have a history of doing business with these buyers. Perhaps they started out with cash in advance. Perhaps they went through a phase where they got letters of credit, which are all wonderful ways of getting paid. Who would turn down cash in advance? Who would turn down a letter of credit? But those are all expense-generating terms of payment. And in the global marketplace, where the global market sets the price, the price in the global marketplace less your cost, what's left over is the profit, right? So we're here to help you drive cost out of the transaction side of your business opportunities. So just to visually impress you with the potential impact for export credit insurance, if you look at a company's balance sheet, look at the accounts receivable, huge asset, huge asset. Most companies will insure everything but, and why would they? I mean, the accounts receivable insurance, it's just there's no downside to using export credit insurance, in my humble opinion. We have several products that you can use. For small business, we have an express product where you can insure up to 20 foreign buyers under an umbrella type situation. On the express policy and on the small business policy, there is no first loss deductible. There's no minimum advance premium, and it's strictly pay as you go. Mr. Ojeda mentioned that it's strictly pay as you go, and that's correct. You pay monthly in arrears. So if I ship $100,000 today here on June 30th, then by the end of July I report that shipment online, I pay my premium, I'm covered 95%. So we have the express and the small business multi-buyer policies for small businesses, and we also have a standard multi-buyer policy for larger businesses. I've been working with a company here in Fort Worth this past week that's just applied for a standard multi-buyer policy. The standard multi-buyer policy does have an advanced premium aspect to it. It does have a first loss deductible aspect to it, and the pricing is not fixed. It's calculated based on the terms of payment, the markets you're selling into, and the amounts. So we can give you indicative rates on those as well. And a very useful product of ours as well is a single buyer export credit insurance. Many companies out there may have a private sector insurance policy that has holes in it. So we can come in many instances and provide single buyer coverage to make a holistic solution for the company, or they may simply have a concentration of risk with one large foreign buyer. And I've helped companies here in the oil field belt mitigate the risk of selling to large foreign buyers like Pemex and other international oil companies around the globe. So Gabriel mentioned our country limitation schedule. As you entertain opportunities that come to you through the internet or through your sales network out there, it's a great way for you to screen those sales for potential support from Ex-Im Bank. So what you can do is go out to the website, www.exim.gov, and look up our country limitation schedule, and you'll see that we're open in some 155 countries. The country limitation schedule is broken out into two different types of foreign buyers, those being private sector foreign buyers, like just a private sector company like Gabriel's company, but overseas, up to and including sovereign buyers, public sector buyers overseas. I'm working with a company here in Dallas right now that's looking at a sovereign transaction into Bolivia. So the country limitation schedule can help you vet these opportunities as you screen those for future pursuit. So that's about all I had to share with you. I think I'm probably out of time as well. So why don't we take it on to the question phase, Steve?
Okay, Kelly. Thank you very much. And we have a number of questions that have come in. Again, if you have a question, please feel free to submit it. Just type it into the question window on your screen and then hit the submit button. And we'll make an effort to get to all of the questions that we can. So with that, our first question is, What can the government do to help small business begin exporting?
This is Kelly, and one of the first things I would suggest is that you meet with the marketing arm of the U.S. government, which is the U.S. Commercial Service. Many larger cities around the nation have what's called U.S. Export Assistance Center, and they have commercial service officers that can help you identify foreign markets, qualified foreign buyers, etc. They have a program called the Gold Key Program where you can come into the U.S. Export Assistance Center, present your brochure and materials on what you're selling, what are you wanting to find overseas in the way of either foreign partners or foreign distributors or end users or what have you, and they will take those materials and your business plan and send it to the commercial attaché at the U.S. Embassy in the country where you're targeting, and then that commercial attaché in country will come up with a list of prospects for you to meet with, and then you can travel into the country and they'll provide you with a place to meet, translators, that type of thing. It's a very efficient way to sell internationally. So I think one of the first things I would do if I were initiating an export program, I would go sit down with the U.S. Commercial Service in your city or nearby.
This is Gabriel. Can you hear me?
Yes, Gabriel.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, another source of help for small businesses, they have created under the umbrella of the Small Business Administration, what they call the SBDC, or Small Business Development Center. And there they have an international export, or people that know about exports, and you can go and ask about how to get into export, what are the regulations, what are the limitations, what type of products. So that's one. Second, within your industry, and I'll speak about ours in the construction industry, we have trade shows, and two of the largest trade shows in the U.S. are construction related, and both of them have international areas where you as an exhibitor or a manufacturer of products can register as a company interested in exporting, and the foreign buyers come in, they look, and then they come over to your booth and talk with you. Another one is to check with the Small Business Development Center or where the Foreign Commercial Service is about trade shows overseas. We went to Germany to exhibit our products, and it was arranged through the German-American Chamber of Commerce, and we were in the U.S. pavilion in Germany, and people that were looking for American products came to that area, and that's how we made contact.
Okay. Our next question is, how much do you think that exporting helps with increasing the labor force?
Yeah, for instance, in 2015, we calculate that our U.S. jobs supported by Exim Bank authorization was about 109,000 U.S. jobs, so it's significant.
In our case, I'm going to go back. Everybody that we laid off during the recession, we hire back. And in addition, we have hired more people because of the increased business that we have. So in terms of number of people, it's increased. We're hiring more people. Second, we as a manufacturers, need to have a good skilled force to be able to manufacture and still be competitive in the rest of the world. So in our case, the wages that we pay are larger or higher than prevalent wages here in the area. And as manufacturers, we're not the only ones. If you talk with the National Manufacturers Association, you'll find out that manufacturers as a whole are paying higher wages for the labor force.
All right. So We're going to continue on with our question and answer session, but if you could, we've just put up a question. Would you like to speak to someone at Ex-Im Bank? So if in the future you'd like to be contacted and talk with someone at the bank about your particular export needs, please just answer this and then hit the submit button, and depending on your wishes, we'll get back in touch with you. All right, just getting back now to the question and answers. We've got a question here. I've always shied away from exporting due to anticipated freight costs being almost as much as the value of the product that I'm manufacturing and shipping. How can I minimize freight costs, that is, to multiple hotels, resorts in Asia from the U.S. East Coast?
It's a little bit complicated question, but I would start by figuring out what is the cost of moving a container from the East Coast to Asia. Without giving you a quote, it's going to cost you about maybe $5,000, maybe less, depending on strength of the dollar and traffic. But you can guess between $3,000 and $5,000 for a 20-foot container. So figure out how much it's material you can put in there, and then figure out your freight cost per item. So that's going to be the lowest that it's going to cost you. And then what you need to do is look at possibly use the Ex-Im Bank to give extended terms to the customer over there. So instead of sending them a month or 2 month supply, hey, I'll send you 6 month supply. You take time to pay me, and you lower your freight cost, and the customer is buying your product. Alternatively, you can look for a warehouse in the Orient that you put on in bond, and then you just ship out of the warehouse. But the first thing to figure out, if you cannot meet this minimum cost of $3,000 to $5,000 per container, it's going to be difficult to offer something that is competitive.
Okay. Our next question is, what's the number one piece of advice you'd give to other companies looking to export?
Well, I have many things that I can give. Number one, decide what area you want to go. You don't want to say, I'm going to go to Europe, I'm going to go to Southeast Asia, and I'm going to go to Latin America. It's a lot of area to cover. What area you're going to go, it's number one. What type of business are you looking to buy your products? Are you going to the end user? Is it consumer product? Is it something that is going to go to industrial use? Identify your market. Number three, and this is very important, get to know the country that you want to go and get to know the people. There's a lot of customs that are different among people. We hear about in Saudi Arabia, it's not polite to show the sole of your shoes. So you have to know the culture of the people to be able to communicate, and that they know that you care about them. Most foreign companies know more about the U.S. than what we know about other countries. And there's one book I can recommend to the audience. There's a book called Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands, How to Do Business in 60 Countries. Let me repeat you. It's Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands. And that goes country by country. What are the business practices? What's the protocol? Negotiating techniques, national holidays, currency, who's the president? And that helps you learn about foreign countries.
Okay. Kelly, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, it's the number one piece of advice. I would learn to anticipate as much as possible. Gabriel, I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but he took out the export credit insurance kind of as a defense mechanism. The market here was collapsing, and he was looking for ways to expand overseas. Number one, I would start exploring internationally today. Start now. Number two, I would put a credit insurance policy in place as early as possible. That way, as you build goodwill with your newly found customers, you're going to wind up getting cash in advance for a while, and typically you'll get letters of credit for a while, but at some point you're going to need to be able to segue into an open account relationship with your repeat buyers overseas. If you have the policy in place, especially for small businesses, you're just ready to go. The pump is primed. You're ready to start getting your foreign buyers approved and added to the policy and begin shipping on open account when it makes sense. And the cost of having that policy in place is de minimis. Matter of fact, for small business, there is no cost, as we've mentioned, to put that policy in place. The only time it costs you is when you invoke coverage, and that's payable monthly in arrears, and it's at fixed rates, so you always know what your pricing is going to be, and you can quote accordingly.
Okay. Kelly, we're going to stick with you. We've got a question. If a business is building a strategic plan for exporting, what questions do they need to be asking?
Well, number one is, how are we going to fund the transaction? Let's just assume we're looking at building out under an export order. You need to be able to finance that working capital requirement. You need to be able to entertain the possibility of issuing performance bonds and guarantees as needed. So you need to sit down with your commercial lender and make sure that your model works. If it doesn't work, then you start looking for ways to enhance that need. And export-import making 90% guarantee is one way for you to induce your lender to get involved in the transaction. And then you also need to ask yourself, okay, if I'm going to leverage myself in favor of this export opportunity, what's my exit strategy? So on the back side of the transaction, either you want to have, cash when you ship, a letter of credit, or certainly if you're going to be shipping on open account, you want to have that insured so that if you do suffer a default, you're still able to service your bank debt and live to fight another day. So you want to create a self-liquidating situation on any of these international opportunities.
Okay. We have a question here. Is there a dollar value limit to the insurance? We do projects with foreign entities that are, in many cases, over $1 million. So any limits, Kelly, on this?
No, there's no limit. The only limit is the balance sheet, as we say. Your credibility, your balance sheet, your ability to repay. As Ex-Im Bank, our bad debts last year were 0.235%, which is extremely low. So it's obvious to you that we underwrite everything. We have short-term credit standards, which is operated in bands. One of the good things about the credit insurance is it's kind of a forced credit management tool for you, the exporter. And so let's say for $1 million or more, you'll typically go on see a credit agency report, a couple of trade references, a bank reference, and the buyer's audited or signed unaudited financial statements for the last 3 years. So, the credibility of the foreign buyer is what dictates the dollar volume of the credit insurance.
Okay. So, Gabriel, people are curious about your company and how you got started with the export part of your business. Can you give a little history on how that evolved?
Yeah, we have products that are proprietary. We got patents on them, and we found a very good acceptance by people in construction here in the U.S. And I'm going to be a little bit specific on our business. We make products that help pump concrete, and these additives are very effective. They're patented, and we were in a situation that the two largest manufacturers of concrete pumps were in Germany. So we have a product that makes their pumps work better. So the decision was, let's go to Germany. So I traveled to Germany. I visited with both companies. We explained the product and developed a relationship with them. And right now, Germany is our number 2 export country. So in our case, it was technology that we knew that it was good, that could be used and applied in the rest of the world, and we look for partners. And in our case was the manufacturers of concrete pumps.
Mm.
We have meetings with other exporters. I have meetings with other exporters, and sometimes it's looking at the need of the country. There's a couple of stories that I'll share. They're very fast. I know of a company that makes portable generators, and these portable generators are being used in Africa to have reliable source of electricity in hospitals. There's another company here in the U.S. that makes bridges. They make steel bridges. You just assemble them in place, and they're sent to Asian countries where they cannot have the infrastructure or building a whole bridge. And this company makes these bridges for the Army. There's another company here in Texas. They are also a very good exporter. They make small planes for agricultural purposes, for fumigation. So they go where the agriculture is fairly developed. They have customers in Mexico, in Argentina, in Chile, that they sell these planes that are used for fumigation of the crops. So look for the need and go there.
Okay. And just looking at your own experience with exporting, what's been surprising to you as you look back on this journey that you've taken with your company? Anything that's really surprised you along the way?
Well, one of the things that has surprised us, we're a small business, and most of our exports are with small businesses. And what has surprised us is the development of a bond between the owners of the companies. They feel that we're helping them with providing them products, selling, giving them advice. They're growing. They're making money, and it becomes a bond. The companies that we do business with, it's repeat business. They're not single sales. So we have friends overseas because of the commercial ties, and those ties they're very strong and very good. When we go to trade shows, they come in, they bring us presents, they bring pictures of their children, of their family, of their new business, and I never thought we were going to be able to be developing these types of bonds.
Okay. A question about business history. What's the minimum number of years that a business needs to have under its belt before it can work with the Export-Import Bank?
We like to see, a couple of years history. Depending on the antecedent history of those involved and the capitalization as well. But it's somewhat flexible. We typically want to see at least a couple of years of history there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then another question. I'm getting international inquiries on a weekly basis. How do I vet these companies? Any advice?
Well, first of all, I would look at the country limitation schedule at our website and just go down by country and by public or private sector and see, what support might be available from us. There are some countries that you'll notice have a footnote 7, which is we're legally prohibited from doing business in those countries. So that'd be just a quick and dirty way to look at these foreign opportunities as the potential support from the U.S. government. Certainly contact the U.S. Export Assistance Center and get any current information they might have available to share with you as well.
I have a little bit more practical information.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, on vetting companies. Number one, get their name and address, and then check in any directory that you can find that the company actually exists. Check their website. Check their email address. If you're getting an email address, at Gmail, at Hotmail, or something that you don't know, it's not traceable, then you're going to have to be doing more checking. If they are in a country, let's say Portugal, as an example, contact the Foreign Commercial Service in Portugal. There is a desk in Washington that specializes in Portugal. Say, hey, I'm getting an inquiry from this company in Portugal. Can you find out if they exist? And try to get as much information before you do anything with them. Invite them to come to see you, or invite them to a trade show. And if it's a large customer, hey, can I come and see you? And if they say, well, we're not able to receive you, they're not good companies. But ask just common questions, just like you would a company here in the U.S.
Okay. And I guess we have time for just one more question. So one of our listeners has asked, does your company have to have exporting experience to be able to work with the Export-Import Bank? Kelly?
Well, again, it's what is your antecedent to date? How are you structured? What are you doing? Where are you doing it? But the short answer, I guess, would be no. I mean, for instance, the express policy that we have available is for small businesses that are just at the very beginnings of their export journey. It's a tool for them to use. We have to approve the buyers under that policy, so it's the answer is no. You don't have to have current export experience, but it certainly would help. But we would be glad to visit with you about that.